All joking aside, so let's talk what we're doing today. I'm going to post it. I'll also talk about it. We're kind of in a deadlifty section, right? Again, so we alternate between deadlifts and squats, the bias, and then upper body is a bit of a bonus. Always a bonus, but it's definitely not our first priority. So single leg deadlifts, okay? I said 8 single leg deadlifts. That's SLDL. That's what that stands for. It'll be written full out in the recording version. And this is, you can increase complexity by lifting the leg. You can increase the weight if you have the option. If you don't have an option to add weight, we can actually change speed. So if you find the weight that you've been working with is super easy / you've been doing okay with it, you can slow it down, right? Slowing it down or increasing range of motion. I'm doing 8 reps per leg. Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary, but certainly ready to kind of load the hamstrings and your butt, and one leg at a time. A push-up with rotations, I didn't put a rep scheme there, another 8 reps. So 8 push-ups with rotations, and that's going to be one of those things where we can assist these again as needed, rotating as much as your body will allow. And we'll go over those shortly. The workout itself is 4 times through. So instead of for time, we're doing just volume. 20 plank ups or plank rows. So for anyone with weights or you want to do something like that along those lines, we'll go over that. 10 single leg curtsey lunges into a cossack squat. We'll talk about both those. You've done both those things. We're just going to put them together now. So it becomes more of a flow and a dance step more than like kind of one thing at a time. You're going to do 10 on one side and then 10 on the other. Okay. As per usual, let's get I say warmed up. I say let's woken up for anyone currently present. In the morning, let's do some cat cows. So finding your spot and just letting that spine bend and flex. I will take, I was like, for anyone, I think you've all live in the Bay Area, we'll take any suggestions for 4+ hour bike rides because I need different routes. I've been doing the same ones a lot. I need some help. My other theory is if the long with the ride, I'll just go on a gravel ride and then it'll take me longer. That's my current theory. About 10 reps. You can drop the head as your belly button comes up. After 10, I kind of lost count already, but roughly. A visitor. Hi. Let's do bird dogs. So alternating arms and legs if you have room. If you can only do one, okay, one length, I should say, that's okay. Make those hips and shoulders even to the ground for these. You have 10, give or take. I know it's rough to count here, so roughly 10 reps. Gonna have a seat. And let's get our 90-90s. So feet roughly shoulder, maybe hip width apart, dropping legs up to the side. You can lean back, especially if you're feeling a little bit stiff, or we all just woke up, so it's okay if it's feeling a little bit rough. And we're doing 10 of these. you want to add or say accentuate this, you can lean forward to the door towards the side you're working on. If that's too much, don't worry about it. Okay, let's talk about a rotation first, right? So the part of the push-up. This is meant to be just we're opening ourselves up. So to prep this piece, we can do this a couple of different ways. We're going to do this on the ground for anyone who has access. If you can't, I'll show you a standing version. So essentially, threading the needle, right? I'm gonna thread my right hand through this gap with my left wrist and my left knee. A big rotation, my hands towards the ceiling. I'm looking up. And then I can rotate as far through this gap as I want. I'm going to repeat this process a total of 5 times per direction. You might feel it back with the stretch of the shoulder blade, potentially. Your shoulder may or may not touch the ground here, so it's okay if you're not going super far through. So if your shoulder's not on the ground, that's fine. Maybe you're just here. You can go as far as reaching through, but that rotation is whatever your spine and shoulder will tolerate. Okay. For anybody who cannot get to the floor, slash, it's not access, you can take this to a standing, nice wide stance, push into the opposite leg, and rotate. It's a nice standing version. Not quite as much rotation in one direction, but it still works. I'm gonna do the floor because I can. 5, takes a while, per side. And of course, we'll switch once you hit 5. So, noticing rotational differences. See if you're not pushing anything you can't manage. Okay. Let's go ahead, finish off with our arm circles, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So, kneeling, standing, whatever you need. Okay. Arms in a T shape, thumbs up. Starting small. Okay. As long as you have room to make full circles. So, kneeling is fine for me. If you have super long arms, you might have to stand up. 10 rotations. Again, larges, big circles are relative. So, as long as your elbows are straight, you can't see my elbows, but they are straight. Okay. Once you get 10 back to T. So for anyone who's dealing with some shoulder stuff, we can even default to 45 degrees versus 90. That'll give you some more playing room. For anyone a healthy shoulder, no problems. We'll start at 90 degrees. Change your direction. Keep your thumbs pointed up. Okay. Let's go forward and back. I'm going to kneel for this one. It's in a little room. So forward and back. A little hug, a little tap on the back. Takes on exactly 10. Okay. So before we get into our single leg iterations of our deadlift, let's just see how hip, knees, and ankle and back and all that's feeling today. I'll do my best to get my full body in this shot. This one requires a bit of distance, so be a bit far away. They're called moon the skies. So our feet are squat width. I can't see my feet, but they're squat width. Hands are above my head. I'm gonna squat down, whatever I can squat to. Fingertips or palms towards or on the floor. If you can raise the hips, you can raise the hips. Hips back down to your squat position. Hands back up. You stand up. Let's do 5. So first and foremost, find your squat position. Hands above your head. I know Maxine can't because she's got some shoulder stuff. So anywhere else, hands above your head. You can touch the ground with your fingertips or palms. Let's do that. Gently raise the hips. If you have the range of motion to raise the hip. Maybe it's okay if you don't. Hips back down to your squat, hands back up over your head, and you stand. Good. Let's do this not fast, explicitly not fast, 5 times. Squatting, hands over the head, gently raising the hips. Once your fingertips touch the ground. If you need yoga blocks or a stack of books to reach, that's fine too. So the ground is just a guideline. Sometimes lifting the hips might be too much. If touching the ground is a stretch, that's all where you need to stop. So for anyone who has, I said, an option for weights, let's grab them if they're not nearby. Even if you have a small selection, that's fine. This is gonna be for your deadlift, so it could be potentially a little heavier than what you'd put above your head. Our deadlift variations today, we'll go over each one and you can kind of choose what feels appropriate. Okay, so we have the single leg deadlift with the foot down. So for my feet, so my feet are so even, I take a step back, okay? And then when I do this from the side, my right leg, the leg closest to the camera, is one working. I can send the hip back, keeping my foot down, standing up. If I have a weight, maybe I carry my weight in hand on the same side, right? Or opposite, so I can carry opposite. If I have two, the luxury of two, let's grab two, okay? Anyone who wants to lift the back leg can lift the back leg. So we can start to then bring this foot up. Sorry, you can't see me, excuse me. Bring this foot up. Again, weighted is optional, okay? If you find any of these to be far too easy, / you can use a little bit of extra something, you can add a row at the end. So I'm gonna go foot down for the sake of this exercise. My left foot will be forward, so the leg away from you. Right leg back. I'm going to keep my foot down, deadlift with the left leg, row, stand, right? Or lift my leg, row, stand. These are all kind of iterations of the same idea. Leg down is always a first option. Leg lifted, second. Load on either, always an option. The row itself, a little bonus. Let's do 8 reps per leg, please. If you have a weight, especially something like a dumbbell versus, let's say, like a kettlebell, do not worry about touching the floor with that weight. So imagine as you come down, if you're facing the camera, I shouldn't see any rotation away from me. Should be looking straight on. If you have a name tag, I should be able to see that name tag, at least the top of your name, the whole time. You stand up by squeezing your butt, extending the hip, or opening the hip. Another way to say it. Good. Biasing the weight in the front leg. We're doing 8 per side. Nice, Reese. Good. So if you're lifting the leg, everyone's doing a great job here. Sometimes lifting the leg can be too much. You can either remove the weight or put the foot down, or just wobble around a bit. Nothing wrong with that. 8 push-ups with a rotation. Maybe it's just a plank hold if we're working on that. Maybe do 30, 40 seconds worth. Otherwise, our push-up and rotation piece, the push-up itself at this point probably self-explanatory, but in terms of width, something around shoulder, you can go wider than this, or even wider, but this ends up being more of a shoulder and pec exercise, and it requires a lot more shoulder stability. So your military style push-up is okay if you have the shoulder strength. Otherwise, generally I'm somewhere near the shoulder, maybe a little wider. Okay. From the side, I'll go for my knees just so you can see this. Forearm stays vertical. So what I'm looking for is wrist and elbow to stay stacked. So what I'm not doing is this, elbow back. I'm actually shifting my weight forward, right, to keep them vertical. You have some wrist stuff. This can be wristy, so a pair of dumbbells or a parallettes would be helpful here. So you can do this with your knees on the ground. I want your butt squeezed if that is the case. Okay, butt squeezed, right? The rotation part, so we're rotating, right? If you want to go full length, same principle. Butt squeezed, push up. You know, twist like a side plank onto one side, and then repeat on the opposite. Okay, let's do 8 total. We'll be rotating each direction 4 times. Assisting your push-up as needed. Even elevating your push-up is a great option on something sturdy. Good. If you want to make this more challenging, shift your weight forward off the feet and onto the shoulders. So say by saying, think planche, you're sort of leaning forward over the hands. Option 2, of course, is pause at the bottom. If your push-ups are feeling really easy, great. Actually, let me know if we want to do something else for the shoulder. If that's feeling a little too much, okay. We could find a much less aggressive version. Friends, that's round 1. Let's do that 3 more times. Cycling through your deadlifts, the iteration of your choice. Single leg is ideal today, so whether the foot remains down or up. And your weight, of course, is always optional. If you have the option to go up in weight, that's even better. Not everyone has that option, but I like it. Good. So for anyone watching this later, Arisa has the weight in her opposite of her working leg. Totally fine by Arisa. Keep rolling. You're good. Carrie has on the same leg she's working with. So whatever for the legs in front. Both are fine versions. It's a matter of taste and choice. Okay. After your 8 single leg deadlifts per leg, good. You have your 8 push-ups with rotation. If rotating is too much, maybe you just lift one hand off the ground and put it back down before you repeat. Good. It can help if you look up at your hand as well, if you're rotating. Good. Lovely. I'm maxing, I'll drink water too. If you're drinking water, it's probably a good idea.
The watermelon vessel really just makes it,
Yeah, if it brings you joy.
really does.
Um, yeah, I believe it's a bit like going to a nice coffee shop and getting up a cup of coffee in a paper cup, even though you ordered it for here, and you're like, I wanted like the mug and
Yeah,
the soft, I just like,
makes a difference.
yeah, especially it's like, I'm not sure actually. Joseph could I speak more to this, the how much, like, I know like a lot of alcohol brands will create specific shaped glasses
Hmm.
that you can like smell or like,
Yeah.
and honestly, I don't know how much of that's psychosomatic if someone I think is an expert is telling me this should be the case, or if it's actually true or not, especially with whiskeys, right? And other and
Mhm.
wines and its very specific shapes and blah blah blah. I don't know how true all that is. However, if it is true, fascinating. If not, it's a great lie. Um, so like I said, if your watermelon gives you joy, great. That's why I bought a bike that was more expensive because it was a nicer color because I'll ride it. Doesn't make any sense, but that was my logic. Nice job. Nice, Joseph. Yeah, that knee can bend. If you want that knee to bend, that's okay. Your range of motion gets a little deeper. That's great. The slight caveat with your style of kettlebell, Joseph, is that because it's bigger and if it's in front of you, it's gonna send your weight forward. So when you're doing this, I know it's a bad example, but you're kind of coming right in front of the toes. If you can keep it off to the side, think more suitcase. It can end up where the bar or the kettlebell is more mid foot. So as you get farther forward, right, we're getting into low back territory, which is not inherently wrong. Let me stick with that. But um, you're carrying it more like you'd carry a barbell, which has much less width. So you can obviously that would be closer to your body. So try both. If you still prefer the one in front, I think it's totally okay. You might just end up with a little more low back input, um, which is inherently fine as long as you know that's the case. So if you prefer the knuckles forward, that's okay to go back to that, but try the suitcase version first. Everyone's moving really well. If you're running into any issues or have any questions about what we're doing, feel free to stop and ask. So Maxine, instead of dipping the shoulder, whoop, right? Try and keep, if you see it, almost take the whatever hand the weight is in, pull that shoulder back. So you're kind of dipping towards, yeah, there we go. So don't worry about the weight touching the ground. In fact, I don't want it to touch the ground. Yeah, there we go. Good. We're doing 4 rotations of this. Just you seem fine with the push-ups. Obviously, given your background doesn't surprise me in the slightest. If it's too, I hesitate to say too easy, but if you want something more challenging, you can let me know. I can give you something a little bit harder for the push-ups. If you like them as they are, you can keep doing them as they are.
I can't remember if I've done 3 or 4.
I think you're on 4. Or you think you're either finishing 3,
I don't know. Let's do some more till everyone's
just
done.
do some more.
Fine.
Oh yeah, I've lost count too. I'll just stop when everyone else has stopped.
Well, someone's got to be the stopping point. So someone's got to be like your, what do you call it? The rabbit? No, I guess Joseph's the rabbit. You chase him around the track. Let's do this. Let's finish. If you're doing the single leg, let's just finish off right and left. If you didn't get the last set of push-ups, that's okay. You're on the push-ups. You can finish off the push-ups. How are you feeling about, I know push-ups are not people's favorite thing in the world, but how are you guys feeling about them? So you're doing them a lot because, well, I'm making you do them. But they're looking good. How are they feeling? Less bad? Fingers crossed.
I feel like they're less bad.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit better every week, which is the purpose. So
Yeah.
I was sore last week, but it was fine eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's good.
Meg was like, these are a lot of push-ups. And I was like, I know.
I don't think it's an unreasonable amount.
Yeah.
It was a lot more than you've done, but it's something that, like I said, push-ups self-regulate. If you can't do them, you just stop doing them. You just don't work. And you're like, oh, I guess I'm taking a break. You you finish, you're done. And then you just come back when you can. Okay, my friends. So are plank ups or plank rows? I want to show you both. Okay. This is an or, not an and, for anybody wondering. So this is something we're going to either or. I forgot I should not grab the kettlebell, but the kettlebell can work just fine. So we can do this a couple of different ways. Now I'm going to show you a version with one weight. Forgot my second set. Sorry guys, excuse me. Or if you have the luxury of 2. Now I happen to have 2 dumbbells just because that's what I happen to own. So I'll give you the option for the plank rows. You have one option, as in I only have one weight, or say one. You don't want to have 2 different weights here. You want the same weights in each hand. Or I have a pair of the same weights. So plank rows, so we're going complicated or loaded first. This is a bit like your shoulder tap, the one that we've done without weight. So when we're doing, so head on, these ones, right? Right. This is a fine substitution here. I am preloading the arm I'm not lifting. So as if I were to walk on this arm, preloading my left arm and preloading my right hip. So that right hip is not pitching off the side. And I'm going to then touch, forcing, right? I go across. Again, you can do same if you prefer. So you're going to feel this arm loads, this arm lifts, and this diagonal connection from shoulder to hip, TFL, whatever this guy is, right? Ab, the lower ab piece, again. So with same idea, but now we're going to be doing this from a rowing position. And you're going to have, with 2 weights, have your hands on the dumbbells instead. Excuse me, working on the camera angles today. So instead of a shoulder tap, I'm going to be pulling the dumbbell back. Okay. So from the side, looks like this. So I'm in my plank shape, right? And then I'm going to, same idea, preload. I'm going to go left arm, pull, right. Reload, pull, left. Again, still trying not to rotate my hips a ton. If you do not have the luxury of 2 of the same weights, that's okay. We can just make this, so I said it's per side, and so 20 reps. You can then just do 10 per side. So I have my one weight now to kettlebell. So I'm actually going to keep this on the ground next to me. I'm actually not going to, what I'm not going to do is have it under my hands. And it's going to be more of a row. And I'm going to get a full extension here, and that's okay. But I'm going to do this 20 times instead. If I need to elevate my hands, I can. Kettlebells are a little tough with this, but they're doable. Otherwise, you can do that with a dumbbell. So that's your rows, right? 10 per side. You can alternate if you have 2 weights. Plank ups. This is your option if you're like, I don't have any weights or weights that are appropriate for this. You're going to go from a tall plank. So I guess your push up, if you will, down to your elbows. A wiggle of the hips is okay. And then back up. That's 1. 20 reps is a lot. If you need to rest within 20, that's fine. If we need to drop that volume, you're like, oh, you know what? 20 is too many. Drop 15 or 10. Okay. Use a bit of common sense. For anyone with shoulder stuff, we could do a plank hold or scapular push-ups. Scapular push-ups, the world's tiniest movement on me, at the very least, right? Can be tabletop. Spread the shoulders apart, bring it back together. If we want to make this harder, we can make this into a push-up. So knees bent, I'm adding weight, or you can make this into, right, a push-up. So any of those options are great. Questions on the, I would say plank up / plank rows. Okay, last but not least, the curtsy lunge into a cossack squat. You've done these both, so I'm going to show you both and then we'll put them together. So curtsy squat or lunge, hips down, is going to be instead of this, right, it's a cross, back knee touch the ground, okay? Cossack squat, you step to the side, right? So step to the side, right? I squat on this leg and I come back. Okay, so we're working both sides. So I'm stepping back and over, back to center, off to my side. And now this is my squat leg. I squat. Okay, that's your kind of your dance steps. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this together. Let's have you do this. Let's pick either, right, 20 plank ups or plank rows. Doing plank rows, 10 per side. And then when you get to the lunges, the curtsy lunge into a cossack squat, we'll break it down a little bit. Okay, so let's do step 1. Plank ups, plank rows, pick your poison. We'll regroup if you need to for those single leg. Guess the curtsy lunges are here, single leg. Curtsy lunges. So let's our first round. We'll talk about that cossack squat and lunge. Good. When lifting the arm, whether you're doing this with weight or not, push that hip down. So if you're lifting your right arm up, push the right hip down towards the floor. Yeah, good. Nice, Carrie. So when you're lifting up that arm, push that hip down. It's going to feel like an opposite thing to do, right? You don't want to pick the hip up and rotate. I want to actively, so whatever arm I'm picking up or pulling with, I want to actively push the hip down. You're going to feel it like right here, kind of where the hip starts to kick in. At least that's where I feel it. So you're
Okay.
internally rotating the hip. It's going to feel like an overcorrection, and it's okay if you overcorrect. But essentially, you don't want to feel like if you looked at on, you don't want to see me picking this up and this hip up. I want to see this hip staying
Yep.
towards the floor.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's okay if it just means like you're just lifting your hand off the ground if the weight's too distracting. Good. So once you've completed, again, your 20 reps or 10 per side, I think we have Maxine and Carrie finishing off here. Let's start with the curtsy lunge. It's okay, Carrie, if you didn't do all 20. Again, if you can't go back, this step across biases this lateral hip butt thing. It's fine if this bothers your knee, although your knee and ankle should remain right on top of each other. If that causes knee pain, a good old-fashioned reverse lunge does the trick. Okay. So across, You can come back, feet together. And then you're going to step. I'm going to step to my right because my right leg went behind. Right? So from the side, I'm going to step to my right. So my right hip back like I'm squatting. And then come back. So from the front, again, step across. Feet together. Step to the side. That's 2. Step back. Feet together. Step back. We're repeating this 10 times. If you need to just pick one of these movements, because 2 together is too much, pick one. Yeah. You can skip the step in between, as in bring the feet back together if you want to be a little more, I would say, I think it's more challenging that way, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Good. 10 per side, right? Or per leading leg. So if you're leading right, you're going to lead left next time. Yeah, if you lack, I would say like space width-wise, you can just pick one of these. So if you can step back, you have a narrow, long space, just step back. A wider space, you should be able to do both. Lovely. And we're going to switch leading legs. So if you're leading with your right, lead with your left. The curtsy squat is first. Or lunge, I guess. Excuse me.
Those are fun.
Yeah, it's a little, I like these. You kind of hit both, I guess, butt cheeks, but just at opposite times. So you're taking turns. Yeah. And it's a bit like a dance move. Right. Very stiff one. Good. That's round number 1. Let's do up to 4. So up to a total of 4. So we have 3 more resting as needed between stuff. And I'm happy to address any questions that might be coming up for you or concerns.
I feel like I need a mirror to not see my hip go up.
Yeah, it's a hard one unless you have like a tactile cue, like someone like, don't touch my hand or touch my hand. Honestly, Gary, if you want to start without weight, sometimes the weight can be a little distracting.
And still pull up an arm just to get the
You can
movement.
pull up an arm, or you can just do shoulder tap. So instead of a weight, right?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
you can just be in your plank.
Yep.
And this is a great way to do it because then now you can be like, okay, I can hold a plank, that's fine. And I'm not rowing. And if I do this, oh no, I've done that already. So preload. I'm gonna do the opposite. Maybe we'll just say build a lot.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it what I'm supposed to feel in the other one, in this one. So
yeah, and if you feel it, that's a great starting point. So even if you can't fix it, you're like, hey, it's happening again. Preload the standing arm, preload this hip. So if anything, rotate it down prior to touching or lifting. And if it means you do less reps for quality or better quality, I prefer that than doing 20 at so-so. Good. And the fact that you're recognizing when it's feeling off or when you've disengaged, that's a great starting point, even if you can't do anything about it yet. It's totally fine. Good. I think there's power in knowing what's wrong or something's not right, even if you don't know what it is. Good.
problem is my lack of counting.
In terms of counting, all joking aside, you can even just go for time. So if you're like, I can only focus on one thing at a time, I genuinely understand that. Like, okay, I'm gonna do this for 40 seconds, 30 seconds, and just focus on rotating that hip down or whatever cue for yourself is. This should take about 30 to 40 seconds ish. Right. So that could be another way to think about it.
It's a good one. I
Yeah.
feel it.
It's also pretty, I say simple in that you don't need a lot, right? You just need a bit of floor space, the ability to hold a plank, and that's pretty much it. A lot of times when we're talking about training and sport and like lifting can either have rotation on purpose or we're resisting rotation, and they both have their place. Especially for all of you guys who are swimming, rotation is a given, but if we start to build in anti-rotation, we build strength, but also awareness when we are rotating, right? Or how much. So if we're deviating from neutral, whatever that is, whether it's shoulder, hips, or whatever else, you're like, oh, I'm rotating now. So sometimes the rotation and anti-rotation work are great pieces together. Good. Sorry, that's my shoulder. If you heard that. Didn't hurt. Something popped, but it wasn't painful. Actually felt kind of good. 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 Carrie, are you rotating because you don't have space lengthwise?
What?
Are you turning around because you don't have the space?
I have space, but I'm using my mat. So I'm kind of
Fine.
like
Yeah, if you want
flipping
to use your
around.
mat, that's totally fine.
I probably could go this way, but I'm like, don't want to slip.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because I have to figure out my direction to stay on the mat.
I mean, hey, that's okay.
If I could go.
That's okay. If you want it, the little kind of the turning side to side carry is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I thought I was figuring out the move first, and now that I got it, I can do
Perfect.
it.
Yeah, and like I said, if you need to just do one of these things and then we can smoosh them back together in the next couple weeks, that's fine. So sometimes removing an element so you can focus on one is more important than trying to push them together, right? As we get more, as we work together more, these are going to become potentially more complex. But there are times you might have to scale them back just because you just have to, and that's fine. So whether it's scaling back load or complexity. Random thought, but for anyone looking for weights and who don't necessarily want to buy them online because you do pay for shipping and how much they weigh, ironically. So kind of a pain in the ass. If you use either Facebook Marketplace or reach out to gyms in your local area, whether they're selling off old equipment because they bought new ones, right? Some gyms will be like, hey, we're getting rid of kettlebells. Do you want some? We're getting rid of dumbbells, and they usually sell them off for a decent price because they just want to get rid of it. They don't care anymore. So if you're looking for weights, but especially kettlebells, I think those are hard to get your hands on. Or even dumbbells, a different set, just ask the gyms around you, or if they know of any gyms selling off equipment. And that's a great way to get stuff I would say you have to go pick it up yourself. There's that caveat, but it's a great way to get equipment without having to buy new things. Especially if you're running into the issue of you're getting stronger, we've added tempo, we've added volume, and you're still like, great. If that's you can reach out to me and I can even just accommodate for that. On the curtsy lunge, your back knee may or may not touch the ground. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Nice, Reese. That looks great. So doing 4 rounds total. We kind of did the first one, I say semi together. The following 3 were done at your own pace. Good. I think we're all in last round, or at least for those who are still working, probably approaching our last round. Maxine, do you all 4?
I think so.
Think so? That's okay. Counting.
Apparently, counting to 4 is hard today. Just
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is.
I mean,
but I'm
all
not alone.
that's okay. Hence that microphone. 1, 2. So, all joking aside, sometimes, so as an ex-CrossFitter, counting past 3 rounds, can't do it. I just can't pass 3. They're like, okay, what'd you do? I don't know what'd you do. And then we end up in this game of like, well, okay, well, if I was ahead of you and you do the math. So if you just take your little tchotchkes at home or something on your workbench and just move them, move them
Yeah.
forward. That's a kind of a cheeky way to do it. So things on hand, like just like little pieces, and it's like you move them forward.
Yeah. I've
That's
got
cool.
a whole bunch of tools in front of me. I could just pull those down and
Exactly. And like I said, a lot of times we're going, the last few sessions have been timed as opposed to rounds. So I'm not asking you to count rounds, but even in that setting, if you don't know, it's like start where you left off and you don't know how much volume you've done, you're like, why am I so sore? I'm like, oh, I did 50 push-ups. Well, that's why I'm sore. So you do not have to count your rounds. But if you need to, find little tools to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Nice work today. It is 6:54. We'll continue with rolling out, stretching out, addressing any maybe, I don't know, things are coming up for you this week or just forever, the chronic thing. Otherwise, if you need to get going or, I don't know, take care of yourselves, by all means, that's great too. Thank you for a lovely session. Let me know if you have any questions about anything we did today, volume, why, all that good stuff. So for anyone who wants 6 extra minutes of their morning, I wish you a good day. If you want to hang out, roll out with us, please stay. For those staying, looks like a lot of us are. Anything that's, if you already know what you want to do, just rolling out, that's great. Is there anything, a body part, I say quadrants, you can think upper, lower, right, left, that's giving you a bit of, I don't know. I want to say, even if it doesn't hurt, it's just kind of annoying. Does that make sense? Stiff, it's restricted, whatever else. Okay. So given that we have, I would say most people's hips are tight just by default, even if you're not a triathlete. So if you have a foam roller, we're going to use that guy. If you don't worry about it. We have other options. So when you're tight in the hips, quads are going to be the first place you want to go, right? So I know we're talking about like hips and hip flexors, but foam roller, I'll show you a non-foam roller version in a second. You can do this 2 legs at a time. I tend to go 1. So I will kick this off to the side. So my right leg is off. I'm on the edge of this one. I'm doing basically a forearm plank. I'm not touching my foam roller yet. I'm actually hovering on this. Take a big breath in. And then relax on this. Now, I didn't do too much today. I don't have a whole lot to see. Like, I'm not worried about this. But just getting a nice roll. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth the whole time. If you want this lower, just start it lower. You can kind of roll around. And treating that with both legs. So that's an option. And then the other one, of course, if you need to stretch, but you don't have a foam roller, just take a knee. So same leg. So this is my stretch leg. Squeeze my butt on this hip. Vertical is fine. If you want, you can lean forward, maybe a little stretch. Same idea though, right? You want to be able to breathe fully. As we start to work more together, is there anything that you feel like, I would say also do both sides. I feel like you're missing / would like to see more of, less of, or you're just generally pretty content?
I think we're doing good.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Yeah.
If you do have feedback or you want to, if you feel like there's, I would say even, in my brain, it's a movement archetype. Like there's a shape in your sport that you feel like you can be better at. It's okay if you don't know exactly what that is or how it relates to strength training, but like in TT, I want to feel stronger, right? Shoulders, upper back, whatever. We can start to get that in. Or in swimming, I'm working on X, Y, and Z. I can extrapolate what you need to do to make that happen, and then we can start adding it in. So it's okay if you don't know exactly how to do it, but that's kind of where my head's going here. Let's finish off the session with what you're having for breakfast, because I want to know. What are you going to eat? Carrie, what are you having for breakfast?
Oh, I might do eggs and toast because that's a easy
Yeah, why not?
protein carb thing.
Yes, it is. And if you're really in a pinch, you're